Um, uh, just give me a minute to think of a fruit pun. Well, if this episode's not gonna try with them, why should I? I'm really curious to see what the overall responses to this episode are. For those not in the know, critics managed to be given access to this episode alongside the last two prior to the official premiere, and I'd heard quite a few reviews praising this one as the favorite. And let's just say, I didn't quite have that. To me, both parts of the two-part premiere were notably stronger than this, and I'd love to know if it's just me, because I think what we have here is a classic case of overhype. And this is by no means to say that this was a bad episode, it's just my least preferred of the three, and that's for one simple reason. So far, this is the episode where I've enjoyed the comedic shenanigans the least. Not every critic is like me, in that not all of them care about the comedy aspect of this show or prioritize it nearly as heavily as the central mystery. But I found episodes 1 and 2 genuinely funny, and I could see someone getting a kick out of the shenanigans involving Wanda's very accelerated pregnancy this week, but personally the gags just landed much better before. Okay, some of them were pretty okay, but the only one that I think got me to actually laugh was the "does this make me look fat" joke. On top of that, the intro song isn't as good as the last two either. I don't know, maybe this is because I never watched a Brady Bunch. Part of committing so hard to a different style of humor every episode means not everything is going to land the same way week to week, and I have less experience with the comedy of the early 70s than I do basically any other decade. And oh hey, assuming I haven't burnt any bridges over this opinion, why not give us a like and subscribe while you're here? It'll only take 2 seconds. Some of this, I think, lies in the execution of things. I don't know if this is the result of some kind of labor laws I don't know about, or something to do with shooting during COVID maybe, or maybe this was just the most practical option, but there's an extended bit involving Wanda bringing a painted Stork to life that I think would have worked much better if they'd gone and gotten a live Stork, as opposed to opting for CG. Not only do I think having an actual animal on set would have been funnier, I also think that what we have now creates an odd break in the show's pattern of, well, breaking pattern. By which I mean to say, in the previous 2 episodes, it seemed like we were careful to make sure that all the visual effects felt of the time period that was being homaged, or at the very least meant to give the illusion of such, and any significant deviation away from the strict adherence to the style of the time was meant to denote something sinister going on. In episode 1, it was the sudden shift in visual language as Mr. Hart starts to choke. In episode 2, it was the introduction of color. With that in mind, suddenly having an effect that's very conspicuously CG and having it not be a symbol of the simulation breaking down, but instead just part of the goofy buffoonery just feels wrong. Like, it's not just me, right? It feels like a major wasted opportunity to not have the first clearly CG effect shot in this show be one of the off-putting breaks away from the sitcom formula of a time period where that wouldn't have been achievable. If it was just going to be for the sake of the gag, they should have got a real bird, or at the very least kept the effects 70s era practical. The bits of intrigue that we do get are, well, intriguing. Honestly, that word probably isn't even strong enough. I'd say it's genuinely arresting. And this is where we get into full-on spoilers, so if you want to watch this on your own and come back, then do so. We've got yet more bits of characters behaving oddly, and Kathryn Hahn's sadly brief appearance in this episode adds to the ever-growing list of questions about who in town besides Wanda is clued into what's going on and how much power anyone really has in this scenario. The interactions between everyone leaves me asking further just how things work around here. The crux of the story this week involves Wanda having only been pregnant for a day in the world of the sitcom, yet characters will also interact as if a significant amount of time has passed for them since the previous episode. It's an odd temporal hoo-ha that has me scratching my head in a good way. We also get another instance of what seems to be Wanda rewriting the reality around her like the end of episode 2, only made even more unsettling given it's done with a sudden jump cut rather than a rewind effect this time. Once things take a full shift in the third act of the episode, I'm frankly left wanting even more. The turn towards the sinister as Wanda discovers Geraldine's status as a plant from S.W.O.R.D., and we get Pietro and Ultron name-dropped for the first time in a long time before she's swiftly kicked out. Hell, even just getting to hear Wanda's Sokovian accent again. As for the first time in the series, the suburban housewife affect drops completely and we see the more serious Wanda of the movies. That stuff is genuinely harrowing. For the first time since Age of Ultron, Elizabeth Olsen gets to play Wanda for creep factor, and man, she's good at it. I wish she'd gotten to spend even a little bit more time in that space before the episode had to end, and I hope that she gets more opportunities to do so as the mask slips further. Just like last week, I can't remotely fault the performances. She and Bettany both are killing it, and Teyana Parris does a perfect job shifting her supporting best friend caricature from 60s to 70s, and bolstering the sense of fear we get from Wanda herself as things get serious. On top of that, there's some moments in here that are actually effectively sweet. I didn't really bring this up last week, but part and parcel of the whole sitcom thing working as it's played almost entirely straight is that it's not just the goofy stuff. When it comes time for the characters to slow down and actually have a moment of warmth, as a sitcom will often do, those are also played for genuine sincerity. The bit where Wanda tells Vision to de-glamour so their son can meet him as himself is an actually really nice, understated, lovable character moment. And it's stuff like that, more so than even the feel-good vibes of all the comedy, that's gonna make the inevitable dark turn feel even worse. Again, I think this was a decent to strong episode, and the more I think about it, the more I bring myself around on liking it. But my point remains that where I thought the premiere episodes were mainly endearing and being pretty strong sitcom stories when divorced from the central mystery, this week was sadly a case of the show spinning its wheels with the comedy until it was designated time to get real. Here's hoping that next week proves more fruitful as we transition into the 80s. Hey, there's the fruit pun.